Working now? Okay, there we go. Ooh. Good morning, everyone. Just to make sure you're all in the right session, we're going to talk about how our cloud access security broker can help you elevate your overall security posture today. So just to make sure you're right, this is the session, this is the title. My name's Kim Kishel. I'm a product marketing manager for Microsoft Cloud App Security back in Redmond. And with me, I have Niv.
Hi, everyone. My name is Niv Goldenberg. I run product management for Cloud App Security.
Yeah, so if you have any of those feature requests, he's your person afterwards. Quick question. I have two questions up front, and I would love a show of hands. Who in the audience already has a cloud access security broker? All right. And who's using one that is not called Microsoft Cloud App Security? Okay. Two potential outcomes for the session. All of you who don't have one today are going to want one. And for the ones that have a third-party one, you're probably going to want Cloud App Security going forward. So that's our goal for today. All right, so let's get started. If you had a chance to attend one of our general sessions yesterday, specifically the one on security, you would have already seen this slide. At Microsoft, we really take security seriously. And our solutions span four what we call pillars, that being identity and access management, threat protection, information protection, and lastly, security management. And with Microsoft Cloud App Security, we actually go across all of them. Microsoft Cloud App Security and CASBs in general are an approach to really cover your entire infrastructure for cloud apps and beyond. And we don't just look at Microsoft native solutions, but we actually extend them to the third-party world of cloud that we know is a reality in organizations today. Now, this shouldn't be a surprise to any one of you, but cloud services are key to almost any organization's IT strategy today. Based on the stats that we actually find from our own products, we see that the average enterprise organization today has over 1,000 cloud apps that users are leveraging in the organization. Some of those managed by IT, and unfortunately a lot of them that aren't. In fact, 61% is what we find IT isn't initially aware of before they start actually digging a little bit deeper and starting off on their discovery journey. What I want to start with is quickly talk about what cloud access security brokers are and what use cases they address and why, as a company, you should think about implementing one in your organization. So this is a term that Gartner defined a few years ago because the market is actually still comparatively new to some of the other technologies that we see in the market. And the best way that I like to think about it is kind of the man in the middle between users and all of the apps and services that they're trying to access in the cloud. And basically making sure that the traffic in between is safeguarded and that adds that layer of protection in between the two. It is one of the things that Gartner considers to be a key investment for organizations over the next few years, and they actually expect that by 2020, 85% of enterprises are going to use CASBs. I think the current number is at something about 25%, so that's a very big growth in a couple of years to achieve based on their research. Now let's dig a little bit deeper into what that actually looks like. So what can I do with a cloud access security broker, and what am I looking at? What you can see here in this graphic at the bottom is basically all of the access points that you've got, right? You have your corporate headquarters, your own network, all the things that you manage very closely and where you may have better visibility into. But reality is that mobile productivity is a thing today. Most organizations do support it, and so you have that public and home Wi-Fi that you don't control. You have external users that you also control less because you do want to have partners that you want to bring into your organization, that you want to provide access to your resources to. And of course, devices that you don't manage, that you let users use to access your resources. And so all of these entry points are going to your organization's cloud apps, are using your resources. And the way that we try to look at it is you have that world of non-supported IT cloud services that you first need to understand, right? Discovering cloud apps is where it starts. Understanding what are my users accessing, where are they storing data, where are they pulling data from, and really discovering your environment of unsanctioned apps. Secondly, assessing what they really mean to your organization, right? Because that's great if you get a name, but you need to understand, what is this app? What does it do? How risky is it? How compliant or non-compliant is it? And what do I want to do with it in the future? Which takes me to the third step, governing those discovered apps. Making a decision on what you actually want to go and do with them. Do you want to block them? Do you want to start managing them and bringing them into your network? Once you've made all of those decisions, obviously that takes us to IT sanction apps, the ones that you already support and may support in the future. And here, with those more closely controlled apps, when information exchanges happen, you want to make sure that when information sits in the cloud, it's classified correctly, it's labeled, and that especially your sensitive information is protected. But that's not a one-time job. You really need to go into a continuous cycle for that. So controlling and monitoring the user sessions and what happens there is super important, but real-time really adds that layer of making sure that the initial storing in a location where I don't want it to be, or giving someone access to download a document where you think they're coming from a risky session, making sure that doesn't happen is kind of the next and elevated step. At the same time, and that's kind of the third category that you saw earlier, we realize that cloud threats are out there, right? So while you can manage your apps and decide what users can and can't do, cloud threats are going to try to get in regardless. And so threat protection is a key component of Microsoft Cloud App Security across all of the apps that you support in your organization that you bring in. We can help you detect insider threats, so if you have compromised identities or users that are trying to do things that you really don't want them to do, as well as identifying and helping you mitigate ransomware activities or the bigger malware activities, which we know is a growing market. And if you had a chance to be in the general session yesterday, $1 million is lost every day by organizations because of cyber threats. So this is really key and something that we cover with Cloud App Security. So now in the next part of the session, we're going to walk through all of the individual capability areas for Microsoft Cloud App Security. If you do have questions, please come up to the mics throughout, because we do have several capability areas, and so we're going to kind of try to take them in between and not just all of them at the end, but of course we'll stay later as well. The first thing that I want to start with is why Microsoft Cloud App Security is different. Of course, there are several choices of cloud access security brokers out there, but we really think of our solution as a uniquely integrated CASB solution. That's because we get to leverage the broader Microsoft security offering that we have, and we get to natively integrate with them. So while we may have the seemingly same capabilities that other CASBs have as well, ours are natively integrated with leading solutions in the identity space, such as Azure Active Directory, and Intune for unified endpoint management, for example. So we really work closely with all of the product teams across Microsoft to bring you a unique solution and really have this as part of our core strategy that when we add new features, they are as integrated as possible so that you as admins and for the users get a seamless experience. And we'll show you several examples throughout in our demos and in our talk track of how we're actually bringing that to life specifically. Quick overview of what we support today. This is a selection of the featured third-party apps that you can closely manage with Cloud App Security today, as well as featured customers. This obviously is not a complete customer list, but we have, if you go to customerstories.microsoft.com, you can find specific MCAS stories and how some of our customers are already using it today. And for the exciting part, that's why you guys are all here, what's new? We're going to walk you through these in much more detail throughout the presentation, but to quickly give you an overview of some of the new things that we're announcing today. One of them being real-time session controls for Microsoft apps, including Office 365 and others, as well as on-premises apps. A new integration for Cloud App Discovery with Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection. Automatic detection and revocation of risky third-party apps, which is super critical, and we actually see a rising demand for that in the market. Then, automating enterprise workflows with Microsoft Flow, really allowing you to bring this into your existing workflows. And lastly, we are also expanding our third-party partnerships with existing secure web gateway vendors. We announced Zscaler earlier this year, and we've now added iBoss to that that set of partnerships as well. So with that, we're going to start diving a little bit deeper into the individual capabilities on what you can do with cloud app security. So I want to start out with the part of discovery, understanding what your environment looks like today. And we really think of this as a life cycle, because the initial discovery is super important, but that's really not where it ends. So while you would start with discovering shadow IT in the beginning, and I pointed out earlier, identifying the risk levels of your apps, we provide you a set of 70 risk factors that you can analyze, and we'll show you a little bit better what they look like in the demo. Then, evaluating compliance, which is super key as well, because we know that a lot of customers have regulations that they need to comply with. So you want to make sure that your entire ecosystem of apps applies those as well. Analyze usage. You're going to want to understand how much traffic is coming from them, how risky is that traffic, and what are the users that I maybe need to go and talk to and understand their business case of why they're using those specific apps. Then obviously start bringing those cloud apps in, start managing them much more closely for users. And then lastly, the continuous monitoring, right? This is not a one-time process. Users are always going to find that new cloud app, that brand new shiny thing that they want to do, and that you need to continuously find and make sure that you bring that in the right way. So this is really a three-phase approach and a life cycle that you go through when we say discovery. And to give you a better idea of what that looks like, we're now going to move into a demo and show you what this looks like in the product. Here we go. Okay, so this is our Cloud Discovery dashboard in Microsoft Cloud App Security. And here on the front page, what you basically see is an initial set of what was found with your discovery information. We can see the total apps in my environment, my total users, and the traffic over what I've currently selected the time frame of the last 90 days. Something that's super key is understanding the top app categories of what I found in my organization. For example, cloud storage, collaboration, to then basically identify, okay, why are there so many multiple applications that seemingly do the same thing, to basically be able to streamline that going forward. We also have over here risk levels associated with the different categories, so you can look at that by traffic or specifically by apps. As admins, you're going to want to look at those risky apps specifically. Yeah? All right, here we go. Demo Wi-Fi still working. And so the homepage really gives you a great overview across categories, the different and top apps, your users, which you do have an option to obfuscate that, as well as the headquarter location of each app that was found. So to dig a little bit deeper, let's start with the category for cloud storage. Here, what I see on this next screen, once that loads, are all of the apps that were discovered and that fall within that category. And what you're probably most interested in are the apps that are considered risky. So at the top bar, you have an associated risk score that we have here, which I'm going to set to 4, to give you an idea of the apps that are considered more risky. So the good thing is that for each app that we have here, we have a set of risk factors that we have already done the work for you and analyzed against. We provide you with general knowledge, which is important to just understand kind of where does this app come from and what does it do, all the way to security, where I get a set of information, where this information comes from and what it can help me understand. Compliance, super key, as well as some legal factors. With GDPR going into effect in May of this year, this is important for any organization working with the EU, essentially. So now if I, for example, want to dig deeper into a single app to understand the usage here, I can do that in the drill down view that I see right here. So I get information specifically on the use across IP addresses, users, and machines. And the demo Wi-Fi is a little bit slow, so I apologize for the load time, which we can see right here. And so once you've done that entire assessment to understand what does that app look like, why is it considered risky, and how much usage is coming from that app, you can then better decide what you want to do with that and actually start managing the app, which you can basically do right within the application as well. And that will then allow you to basically make the decision, do I want to bring that in? Do I want to start managing the app? Do I want to sanction it, essentially, as IT? Here we go. Here we see some of the management app actions that we have, or do I want to unsanction it and essentially block it completely from being accessed from my network and for my users? Now, I mentioned earlier that we have an integration with secure web gateway vendors such as Zscaler and iBoss now as well. And the experience that when you decide to block an app through one of those existing appliances would essentially look like this. Exactly what you would expect if I then said, hey, I have blocked the app file dropper here. As a user tries to access it, you can completely customize the experience with them, right? And let them know, you can't access this for reason A, B, C, and even help educate them and say, instead, you can use this app, which is supported by your IT environment. And the two last things that I want to show you are our new integration with Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection, which is a non-deployment enablement, I would almost say. All you have to do is in in the Windows Defender Security Center, enable this toggle. At the moment you do that, Windows Defender ATP will start feeding traffic information to Microsoft Cloud App Security so that you can do machine-based discovery and essentially get all of the discovery information that you would otherwise get through appliances like Zscaler or a separate log collector. And of course, as IT, you probably also have to sometimes report out to your management. And for that specific use case, we've created a new Cloud Discovery Executive Report, which essentially gives you a complete overview, broad overview of the main findings that you've had in discovery, and also makes suggestions of what you can do there. I guess we don't have it open, so I'm going to generate a new one. Oh, it's already at the top. OK, so we pre-downloaded that to not depend on the Wi-Fi. So this gives you a high-level overview to basically talk to your, to your management about what you found and to explain what some of the actions should be that you want to take with Cloud App Security. Key findings, recommendations on how to essentially improve your cloud security posture. So quickly, to wrap this up, the couple of new things that we saw is the brand new integration with cloud discovery with Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection, which is an easy enablement with a single toggle. And then secondly, our new integration with iBoss as a secure web gateway vendor, which is the same integration that we already had announced with Zscaler earlier this year. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Niv.
Any questions about cloud discovery before we go to talk about information protection? Can you please get to the mic?
Does it also work with Azure services and mobile apps that we develop?
So the question was, does it also work with Azure services mobile apps? In terms of the application that we discover more than 16,000 applications. Applications that are public or automatically added by our team, and then they're assessed, and we also support custom applications. So if you build your own application on Azure, you can add a signature for this application into the catalog, and then you can monitor also any custom application. So it's both for public and also line of business custom application in the organization.
Thank you.
Any other question? OK, so now after we've assessed the different application, we know which application are being used in the organization. We know that there are some risky applications that we have blocked, and we want to focus on the more sanctioned applications to make sure what data is going out there and how the data is protected. So this is going to be the next section that we're going to focus on. But, oh, yeah. You can also use that mic over there.
Do you have any plan for doing data loss prevention or something for unsanctioned services?
So this is a great question. If anyone didn't hear it, the question was data loss prevention for unsanctioned applications, because here in this section, we're going to focus more on the sanctioned applications. So the answer is yes. As part of the integration that we're building with Windows Defender ATP, that on the first hand enables you to see also off corporate data, we're working also the ability to prevent upload or any use of corporate data within unsanctioned application in the endpoint. In general, we know that there are two approaches to this. One requires fraud proxy. That means that you need to route all the different traffic, whether it's to sanctioned application or to unsanctioned applications, and to inspect it. But we believe that a better experience for our users, for the customers, is to do it within the endpoint, and then within the endpoint to identify what data is being used in the context of which application, and to block the upload or the access for unsanctioned application to corporate data there. This is something that we plan forward, but it's definitely on our minds. Okay, so this was a clear, also a good differentiation that now we're going to talk specifically about the sanction application. Sanction applications are applications that we connect to using our API connector, which is an out-of-band connector that enables us with improved visibility to these applications. When we talk about information protection, as Cloud App Security, we fit into the general Microsoft information protection approach. And what we provide here to our customers is a solution and not just a set of different products, because we understand that there is a life cycle of the documents, life cycle of the information in your organization that starts with the ability to discover what data is being created, then to classify, to identify the risky data or the sensitive data in the organization, protecting the data, and then monitoring it. But there are multiple different surfaces to do that. There is the surface of the devices themselves, there is the surface of the application, the cloud services, and the surface of the on-premises. And Cloud App Security fits into this solution approach and provides the ability to extend all of these capabilities to cloud applications, and it's uniquely integrated with Office DLP, with Azure Information, and also looking forward with the rest of the information protection solutions within Microsoft. Looking deeper at the capabilities that we provide and the top of mind when it comes to information protection, it starts with understanding what data is being out there in the cloud and how is it exposed. We see more and more exposures. Some of them are in IaaS services such as AWS S3. We see them also in file sharing and file collaboration that end users, by mistake, unawareingly, they overshare the data. Sometimes it's for productivity. They want to share some file with their personal account because it's easier for them than to go and download it and to continue using it on a different device. Sometimes it's just because they didn't see that the option they choose is share with a public link, and they don't understand the consequences of a public link that could then be crawled through the internet and someone can just access this file because it has public access. So this is the first step, really understanding what is the exposure. And as we'll show in the demo, it's not only understanding what files are being exposed, but also understanding whether sensitive files are being exposed, because we want to focus our efforts on really what matters most. And what matters most is the sensitive information that is being exposed outside. Next thing that you would like to do as an organization is really to run DLP and to enforce DLP policies within also cloud applications. So regardless of whether you already have an on-premises DLP solution that you want to extend to clouds, or you want to leverage our DLP solution, you can do both of them with Cloud App Security to scan all the files that are uploaded and in use in cloud applications, and then to apply the relevant governance actions on them. You can go and decide that you want to classify, label, and protect all of the files that are at rest or that are newly created on cloud applications. And for that, we have the Cloud Scanner that scans all the data in the cloud applications and then can apply Azure Information Protection labels. You can also decide that you want to have additional governance actions, such as finding all the files that contains personal information and removing sharing permissions or removing any external collaborators, which we'll soon see. And the last thing, after you've identified a violation, you also want to be able to investigate it. You've seen that the file was externally shared. You want to understand what is the impact of this exposure. Did anyone access this file or download it meanwhile while it was shared? Who are the users that have used it? All of these investigation questions can be answered with Cloud App Security, and this is what I will show you right now in the demo. The Global Protect login. Let's just let this finish. Okay, and now we're going to, we started at the Discover section of the navigation, and then we're going to investigate deeper. When we start investigation, we go to the files. And in files, we're going to see all of the different files that are being uploaded to the cloud applications. You can see here that we have the files that are in use across all of the different applications. Whether it's OneDrive, Box, SharePoint. I'll just refresh these. Okay, great. Whether it's OneDrive, Box, Salesforce, Box, Atlassian, all of the different applications that are connected and protected, we monitor them here and you can see all the data. And then you can very easily question yourself, which one of these files is being accessed publicly or has the permission for public access or external access. And then simply by choosing the filters here, you will see the list of all of the files that have public access. But then, as we said, you want to focus it only on sensitive data. So going to the advanced filtering capabilities and using the classification filter, filter it by Azure Information Protection labels and choosing only to show the files that are confidential or highly confidential classified. Then we can see only these files. So these are all the files in my organization that has been classified and labeled as confidential and are still publicly shared. So this is an exposure that I want to take care of. And I can take care of it immediately by just going here and removing any direct sharing. I can decide that I want to do further investigations, such as seeing who the file is collaborated with, so we can see whether it's shared externally, who are the users that it's being shared with. If it's groups, specific users, we can see all of this information. But we can also dive deeper and understand whether there are other policies that this file is violated. So simply by clicking here on the matching policies, you can see that this file also contains credit card information, and you can very easily see here what is the information. If for some reason you decide that this is a legitimate violation, this is a file that should be there, this is part of your corporate policy, you can authorize all of these violations. If you want to go and have a policy to take immediate care of all of these kind of violations, simply click on the new policy from search that will import all of the filters that you use for the investigation and will provide you also with additional filterings and governance capabilities. So you can see here in the file policy creation, we've imported the filters that we had in use. We can add additional filters such as metadata about when the file was created, the file name, file types, when the file was last modified. We can decide that we want to scope this policy only to specific files. We can decide that we want to scope it only for a specific website or to exclude some websites. And we can also scope it based on user groups. A very common scenario that we see a lot is that some of the business units in the organization are allowed to share data externally, but they can do it only with a specific site or folder within SharePoint. So the way to do it will be to choose all of the files that are being externally shared and to exclude this business unit and to exclude this SharePoint site. And for the rest, all of the other files that we see that are externally shared, we can go ahead and inspect the content. And when we inspect the content, we can either do it by providing regular expressions that we want to match for, providing keywords, or by using some built-in sensitive information types. What we've added recently as part of the Microsoft Information Protection approach is the data classification service. This service is a shared service that is unified for Office DLP, Azure Information Protection, and Cloud Ops Security, and provide you with the consistent classification of the data. So whenever you see a sensitive information, you'll see it across all of the different surfaces and across all of the different engines. And as you can see here, we provide with 90 sensitive information types out of the box. We've recently added the ones that are related to GDPR. We're continuously adding new ones. And after you select the sensitive information that you want to match, you can also add some additional advanced configurations regarding the accuracy of the match and also how many instances do you want to match for in order to reduce the number of false positives. So this is another capability that we have here in place. And last is the ability to have automated governance. So we've identified the file, we scoped the policies, we've put all the content inspection that we want to have in place, and now we want to remediate this violation. So you can see here that we support these governance actions across all of the different applications that are connected, where you can decide if you want to notify the owner, if it's a low impact vulnerability or low impact exposure, you'll notify the owner and ask them to go and take care of the violation that they have in place. Or if it's a high priority, a high impact violation, you can decide that you want to automatically put this file in admin quarantine, meaning that this file is now quarantined and can be released only by the admin. You can also decide that you want to remove all sharing or apply a protection label to make sure that this file is protections. And the beauty of the solution is that it provides you, on one hand, with out-of-the-box recommendations, best practice policies, and on the other end, also with power user capabilities that you can configure the policies to match your specific organization needs. Any questions about the information protection capabilities? So the question was, what is the licensing model for the data classification service? Every capability that we show here is licensed as part of the MCAS licensing. So it's no different licensing. The license is licensed per user. At the end, we can provide more details to resources about the specific numbers. But the entire capabilities that you see here is all of them are bundled together under the license. There is no separate license per each one of the capabilities.
But naturally, if you wanted to use it across Office 365, you would need Office 365 licensing. But we'll have a quick overview slide on what exactly you need to buy it.
Yes, please. So the question was, would this replace the compliance and the security and compliance center capabilities for DLP? So the answer is no, this complements it. The way that we look at it, we build together the solution so that Microsoft Cloud App Security extends it to third-party applications. There are some things that currently you can do in Microsoft Cloud App Security that you cannot do in the Security and Compliance Center. We're working together with the Security and Compliance Center to add these capabilities. So you'll have all the capabilities if you need them for Office within the Security and Compliance Center. Exactly. And Microsoft Cloud App Security will extend it to your third-party applications. Yes? Definitely. So the question was, can we also configure the number of instances that match in a specific content inspection and not to match based on a single occurrence of a specific information type? And the answer is yes. We have these advanced capabilities for tuning the different classification rules that you put in place. The number of instances is one of them. Yes? Can you please repeat it?
Exchange Online isn't under governance.
Oh.
Question.
So the question was, do we also support Exchange Online? Exchange Online. So Exchange Online is currently out of the scope of Cloud App Security. We focus more on the applications of third-party applications, and email is part of Exchange Online protection. Last question, and we'll continue.
I saw Azure over there as part of Sanction service. So how do you do DLP and that sort of thing for blob storage and also for S3 bucket?
So we'll touch that in one of the next sections. Okay. So after we talked about information protection, the next thing that I want to dive deeper into is the real-time monitoring and control. You're probably all familiar with the conditional access concept of Azure AD. You get a session from a user. You're looking at all of the different conditions. You're looking at who is the user, what device is it coming from, is the device managed or unmanaged, is the device compliant or non-compliant. We're looking at the location. Which location does the session come from? And we're looking at the application. What is the specific application that this user is trying to access? And based on that, we come up with a risk score. Based on the risk score, we can define what is the condition that we want to then apply. What is the control that we want to then apply? Whether we want to allow access, just simply allow access because it's a high confidence session or a low risk session, or whether we want to require additional controls, such as require MFA, deny access, or force password reset. What CloudOps Security adds to these sets of controls is the ability to limit access. So it's not only that you have to decide within access what do you want to do, you can also decide how do you want to shape the session that continues after this access. So if you want to allow access, but you want to restrict some of the functionalities because you think that this is a risky session, this is exactly what we do. And the way that we do it is by providing with a context-aware session policy for any application. So any application that is SAML-based or OIDC-based, we can support, and based on the context of this session, decide what are the controls that we want to put in place. So we add the controls of the application and the data itself. So for example, if you have a partner user that you want to provide access to your environment, but you want to limit it only to view-only mode, this is something that you can now do. It's not part of the initial login. It's part of the additional controls that we put on the session itself. If you want to allow access from unmanaged devices, you want to allow people to collaborate and to use the applications, but you want to block download because you do not want this data to go to unmanaged devices that you don't know what is the security posture of these devices, you can also do this now. And the beauty of it is that you can also do it based on the content itself. So you can decide that data that is classified or data that contains sensitive information you don't want to allow to download, but any other kind of data you want to allow to download. And I will also show you what's even more exciting is the ability to protect the data within real time. So you can take a file that even if it wasn't protected or encrypted within the service itself, once you download it, you can decide that because this session is risky, you want to apply this additional control and protect within download, protect on download the specific file. And another thing here to mention is that the way that we built it is with a unique integration with Azure AD. As we said in the beginning, in the intro that Kim gave, for us it was important to build a solution in a way that will elaborate existing capabilities from the Microsoft security stack and make your life easier when you want to start using another application. So you don't need to do lots of configuration. You'll see soon the configuration. We built everything together so it will be just another extension so you can continue to use your existing policies and to add more granularities and more capabilities and more controls on top of it. And just a very brief explanation of how this thing works, because when you see it, it's going to look seamless, and we want to share with you the magic behind it. So the way that we do it is that once the user tries to log into application, for example, here, let's take Box. So the user will go to his browser and just go to box.com. This session will be redirected to AAD because Box is a sanctioned application. It's being provided by the organization. So the login will be managed by AAD. And then within the login, AAD will do the first inspection. And they will check whether this is a risky session or whether there's any indication that they need to redirect this session to CloudOps Security or whether this session is a legitimate session or there is no risk at it. If the session is no risk at all, from a managed device, from a known IP, from a known user to an application that is medium risk, the session can then go directly to the cloud application, and CloudOps Security will not have any effect on this session. And this is very powerful because when you look at these kind of real-time controls, if there is no reason to have additional controls, you don't want to have any interference to the user experience. You don't want to have this man in the middle. If there is some reason for a risk in this session, you do want to apply these additional controls, and then the session goes through CloudOps Security. In CloudOps Security, we perform this additional assessment of what is the data. We can look at the specific data that is being accessed, and then we can decide what are the additional controls that we want to put in place, just the ones that I showed you before. But in reality, the service that the user is going to interact with is going to be not the original box.com, it's going to be box.us.cas.ms, and this is how we do this redirection, and we hold the entire session within CloudOps Security so we can have these additional controls. So although the user thinks that he's interacting directly with the application, he's interacting through the proxy. And I think that the best way will be just to see it in action. So this is what I'll show you next. And let's start with this user. This user is Sylvia. And you can see that Sylvia just got this morning to her Office portal. And one of the things that she wanted to do, she wanted to go to SharePoint and to download one of the files. She wanted to do it because she didn't have her own laptop today, but she used some other device from one of her colleagues because she forgot her laptop. And then when we are going to SharePoint, you can see that the experience is going to be taken through the Cloud App Security proxy. And you can see that first you get a notification that the access to Microsoft SharePoint is going to be monitored. This is something that is configurable. Some organizations love to put this notification at the beginning of a monitored session. Some of the organizations prefer to have this transparent behavior for the end users. But you can see here that after we put this notification, the experience that Sylvia is going to get is the normal experience that you all know and familiar with from SharePoint. And then when we go to the documents, and we see all of the different documents, and we try to download one of the sensitive files, a file that contains social security numbers, and let's just do it again because I clicked on open instead of you can see now that when I click on download instead of open, you can see that instead of getting the regular file, the download was blocked. And what I actually got was a tombstone saying that the file could not be downloaded because it contained sensitive information. So this is the ability to inspect the data within real time. And because we see that there is sensitive information, we decided that we want to block it. But what's also very nice is that you can decide that you want to put this additional level of protection that we mentioned. So now when I try to download a different file, which doesn't contain sensitive information, you can see that the file will be downloaded. And once it's finished to download, you can see already now that Word is accessing and trying to connect to Azure Information Protection. And then you can see that the file that was downloaded was applied with a protection label within real time. So this is a file that was not protected at all. And now that it was downloaded, we apply within real time this additional protection. So you can see here that the file was added with the permissions only to specific users, and now I am limited only to view, and I could not do any changes in this file. So this was one of the things that I wanted to show you, and for us this is very exciting to announce now that we're protecting now also any of the Office 365 applications. So it includes OneDrive, SharePoint, and all of the rest. In general, for those of you who are interested in the technicality behind it, it's the ability to support any OIDC application in addition to SAML applications. And the other thing that I want to show is what happens when I collaborate with an external partner. So for external partner, the situation is a little bit different. I don't want to allow him to download the data, but I also don't want to allow him to do anything with the data. I don't want to allow him to share or to upload. And then, for example, let's see if I take this file, and because I'm coming from a different user, this user has access to view the file. So I can view the file here, and I can see all of the different information. But then if I want to open it for further edit, you can see that I will be blocked, and I will get the notification saying that I was blocked, and I can only go back to the file. So this action was blocked. If I'll try to download the file, I am blocked. If I try to share the file, I'm blocked. And even if I try to print the file, you can see that I can't even print the file. So this is enforcement of a read-only mode within real time. If a different user will log into this, he will have the regular experience. And the reason here is just because we saw that this user is a partner user coming from an unmanaged device, we decided that we want to apply this read-only mode, and we blocked all of these capabilities that are related into the data and to doing anything with it. The last thing that I want to show you is how we actually configure this policy. So I'll just go back here. And I want to show you that here within Azure AD, under conditional access, in order to configure a policy, the only thing that you need to do is start a new policy. You can choose the different users that you want to have. You can choose a different application, but the specific thing that I want to show you here is that for the additional controls, the only thing that you need to do is this simple checkbox. Just choose Use Conditional Access App Control. We've added some of the some capability to already configure the policies within Azure AD. So now you can have the basic capabilities within Azure AD, such as monitor only and block downloads. And then if you want to extend it to more custom and advanced configurations, you can simply choose here on Use Custom Controls and go and continue to do the configuration within Cloud App Security. Within Cloud App Security, you can see here in the session policy that you can define more granular controls that will look at the data and will block specific activities or block download of the files. And when we look for to block download of the file, you can see that we can look at all of the different filters that we've seen before. So we can look at what is the device, whether the device is compliant or not. We can look at specific applications. We can have different constraints about the file itself and the data that is being included in the file, and then we can decide whether we want to block the application or protect it within real time. So the configuration is extremely simple, and it provides you with the ability to set these additional controls on the user session. Any questions about the proxy or the demo?
Block copying. So you weren't able to download that one file, but you were able to open it. Does that prevent you from copying it off and maybe pasting it into like another document?
Copying into clipboard or copying into, like, using copy in the application or copy in the browser?
So Word Online, you copy.
Yeah.
Would you be able to copy that data out of that online file?
If you're doing Control A, for example, and selecting the data and then extracting it, this is something that you'll be able to do. But if you want to block this kind of activity, you will just not enable the option to open it in Word. Because if someone can open it in Word, they can take the data. They can also print it and then do OCR for this. So the use case here is really focusing on limiting the activities within the application and not looking for closing all the different that the user can steal the data, because if you're looking at it, user can simply copy it and then OCR or just do the clipboard. So this is not the risk that we were focused at. Any other questions? Okay, so just to recap, we showed the newly announced capability of extending these conditional access app controls to Office 365. Another thing that I didn't show here in the demo is that we also support now on-premise applications using our integration with AAD App Proxy. So any on-prem application that is being published to the cloud with AAD App Proxy, we can also have these additional conditions and controls on these applications, and also the ability to do this configuration very simply within Azure AD. Next topic that I want to talk about is the threat protection. And talking about threat protection in the cloud is actually a very exciting topic for researchers, for organizations. It might be less exciting, but we see a growing trend in cloud attacks. We see that more and more attacks are being performed only in the cloud, and we see new attack vectors. So if before, an attack will very fast get into the on-prem and we'll see it detected in the endpoint and we'll see detected in firewalls, now the entire attack will go undetected only in the cloud. We see different vectors and we also see different threats. And therefore, we provide with the capability to detect all of the different threats that we see now, starting from malicious insiders that start to use or behaving differently than they used to. Looking at malwares, we see a growing trend of malwares being shared in cloud services and being propagated through these sharing mechanisms and sync just by being uploaded to the cloud and then synced all to all relevant users. We see ransomware growing, and we see it also affecting organizations that are connected to the cloud. Rogue applications, this is something that we have a session that we're going to talk more about it, but we see also a growing attack trend of attackers that are sending invitations to applications that are not real applications, that are rogue applications that pretend to be legitimate, but then they're risky and they get through that credentials to go and steal the data of the organization. And two other scenarios that we focus on are data exfiltration and compromised accounts, where we look at attacks from the outside also. When we look a little bit deeper about the different detections that we have in place, so we can look at it based on what is this that we're looking for. Sometimes we look for the threat delivery and the persistence mechanism. Sometimes we look for indicators of the compromised session. We look sometimes at the malicious use of end-user account and also the malicious use of a privileged user. And you can see here a list of all of the different detections and the new one that we've recently added. And it's important here to mention that we have several different engines to do these kind of detections. The most important differentiation is between the behavioral-based and the deterministic. Some of the things you can detect with a deterministic threshold and a deterministic policy. If your organization you know that is local and you don't expect any global access, you can detect very easily a compromised attempt by looking at activities from a company that you know, from a country that you know that you never have business with. For example, we see a growing trend of attack attempt from Nigeria. So you can very easily set a policy that every login attempt from Nigeria, you want to trigger an alert on this or you want to automatically remediate it. Another thing that we know is that when you are looking for deviations or for kind of changes in the behavioral, you need to have a more sophisticated machine learning engine. And this is why we also have this machine learning UBA engine that is profiling every user in the organization and also the organization baseline. And by comparing the user activity and the user sessions to the user history and to the organization history, we can identify also compromised accounts or malicious insider based on that. I will just switch the demo to show you some specific attacks, but I think that it's also important for us to land another message here is that in terms of the detection of clouds, we see that in order to catch high accuracy and to identify with high accuracy attempts of compromise, we need to look at the entire sessions and we need to look across all of the applications. So it's not enough to look at one application at a time, and this is why when we look at a user session, we look at all of the different applications that he's using at the same time, regardless of whether it's Office or Box or Azure, as we will soon discuss also the capabilities over there, and we build this profile of what is the user doing across all of the cloud workloads within real time, and then we understand whether this is something that we need to trigger an alert on or not. And here we're going to the alert section within the portal. And I chose to filter on a specific user that we've identified several different alerts that came in one the consequence of the other. And this is the story that we usually see when we see real attacks. So when we see real attacks, we see them starting with a multiple failed login attempts because the attacker will try to brute force the password for this account. Then we often see that the activity is coming from a Tor IP because when attackers are trying to do these brute forces, usually they want to obfuscate the real IP that they're using. So it'll go behind this Tor IP. Then, because in many cases the user is already logged in, because the attack sometimes goes while you're still connected and acting within the application. So we'll see an impossible travel. We see two different activities, one from one location and another from a distant location. And this is also something that we look for. And then we see that the attacker will start to do his malicious intent. So he will start downloading information because he wants to harvest some of the information that we have in the organization. And in many cases, we also see such things leading to ransomware. For each one of the alerts, you can dive deeper and look at all the specific activities that were involved in this alert and why we triggered this alert.